get an opportunity to be back with you here in the middle of our wonderful rainstorm we're going through. So, wish all of you well. I hope things have been going great for you and that you begin your journey of enlightenment. And if you haven't begun your journey of enlightenment, maybe this is a sign, this is a wake up to you that there's a reason. And uh, I know some of you probably may not recognize this, maybe you do, but part of all of this chaos that we see going on the earth, what's so wonderful is that it is just a matter of exposing what's always been true, what was known for a long time before us. And I think that's one of these things as I really learn a clearer picture of who Yeshua even was. He was a gifted teacher. I'm quite sure that that's true. And so what a more wonderful uh, pattern that we can look at, that he went through this process, even being born this Davidic line Jew. He chooses a different path, and that should make us really, really question. It's a question has been asked: did Yeshua ever pray to Yahweh? And we have no clue who he was praying to when he said Father, but uh, I feel quite confident that uh, from his behavior that it wasn't honoring Yahweh. So, uh, pretty powerful stuff, to come into the revelation that wow, maybe things that we've been told haven't been quite as truth as we thought they were, and so we have to then make a choice. It's really just a simple choice as to whether we're going to continue on and find out. Uh, the more, I don't know for you guys, but for me, the more that I look back on the things that are past, the more I see that he was always there doing what he's always done. So I had to ask myself a question. If the spirit forces that have been leading me through all of my life, if those spirit forces haven't changed by my knowledge of what is and isn't true about the Bible, if the things leading me haven't changed, then the things that were leading me were most probably not from those sources anyways. That's how I understood them. But nothing's deviated. He still speaks to me. He's still kind to me. He still encourages me. Those things, none of that has changed with all. And we've gone through a couple of years now. For those of you that have been with me, you really are a special person, because we have like kind of run the gamut. And I'm very thankful that we have, because had we never been here, we would never know how it feels. So how do we use that practically in the spiritual realm, and us becoming and finding out who we even are? And I don't know how many of you have been looking inside yourself, but man, this is a really huge piece of the whole picture. And I knew it and I recognized it, because whether y'all know it or not, like a year ago, it started for me, and him hammering me with the statement of that you're to love your neighbor as yourself. And that's that's a load. What does that even mean? What does it really mean? And here's the greater question. This is the one I find most people haven't even begun to ask. They'll never get an answer for the first one if they don't answer the second one. And that is, what does it mean for me to love me? See, we have a false, I believe, we have a false concept on a lot of levels of love. We have an orchestrated version of what love is. And so stop and think about things for us. If the God, the divine, the Father, if the divine loves everything and he is love, and there is no nothing in him that isn't love, and he reacted this way to us, how then are we supposed to react towards him and towards them? Just ponder that for a bit. What does it really mean? So we're going to find some pieces. He gives us some nice pieces tonight. We're in the book of Thomas. If you don't have it, you can, real quickly, you can download it to your phone. The one I'm using is called the Scholar's Edition, a PDF of the Gospel of Thomas. I want to add a little pieces here. Christianity hid the Gospel of Thomas. And as I've shown you guys over the last couple of weeks, that the teachings of Yeshua, in many cases, if you listen to them metaphysically, and I hope I'm being okay as far as trying to show y'all that this same statement that's used by Christianity can have a completely different interpretation than what they told you it meant. And that's a real hard piece for us sometimes, because we're Americans. Come on, man. We're Americans. We like to think that we have it all figured out. Yeah. We're like, well, I already know all the answers. Okay. Why are you having so many problems if you do? Huh? Ask yourself that. Why am I struggling? If we already know the truth and this is the truth, then why don't we know it? And so the answer to the question is because what we were told the truth is now being proven to be something other. I was not serving two gods, although I prayed to both of them. Oh Elohim, 3 of them, sorrowful, a whole batch of them. Any of you ever question that? It seemed like there's these, I know the Baptists do, because I've had Baptists tell me, well, we don't believe in that God of your Bible. We only believe in the God of the New Testament. Interesting thought. You have to think about it. So the reality of it is that there is still a creator, and he is divine. His name's not El, and he doesn't have a son named Yahweh who kicks him off the throne. Okay? Parts of the Christian story of Yeshua being the Son of God, other than we're all the sons of God, but in the concept that it was propagated, is really just a picture of Yahweh and El. I'm sure y'all knew that. But it's a metaphoric picture. Yahweh and El are mythology. Yahweh, God the Father, the Creator, he's all of those things, right? But he was never any of those things in mythology. And so you can then see that there's been a morphing, and they've just taken pieces from here and pieces from there, and you can't live and not be a pagan. Because everything is based off of pagan. So it's an interesting journey, but there is hope. And we can be free, and we can walk in peace. And I'm not talking about unbridled, non-moral fun or decadence, whatever term you want to use there. I'm talking about walking through this life and being at peace because you get it, that you're okay. I'm going to continue to become the person I was intended to be. Unfortunately, I haven't quite made it there, but I believe I'm well on my journey. And I hope for you, some of you who've lived under the bondage of, you're going to hell, and that's where we all live, friends. I'm sorrowful. I've preached as many hell messages as a lot of preachers have. Probably not as many as a bunch of others, but on the same token, that concept is still over the top of all of us, probably even psychologically, and for some of us will be for years. We'll still. I did it just the other day. So learning is a process, and you got to get it inside your mind, and then you got to accept it, Then once you accept it, then you can begin to work towards it. And I think maybe we're working towards getting some of this trash out of our lives, getting the false doctrines out of our lives. What a wonderful peace it's going to be when we recognize freedom doesn't give me the freedom to do whatever I want to. It gives me the freedom to do what's right. And because I am spirit and you are spirit and we are the I am that is love, we are the I am that is light. And if we're not, we are, but if we're not functioning or living in that realm, then there's also the wonderful, beautiful option that we have to begin to change and begin the process of walking towards that. So it's really not so far out of stretch of where we were. We just kind of have a couple things that were crossed and stuck together, and he's exposing those things for us. But it's just not here, friends. The messages, many of them, I may never see those messages many times until after I've spoken, and a month later I'll see somebody preaching a message very similar. And I always question, was it me or them? Were they preaching it before I was? And that's, of course, that's ego. But I try to let that stuff go and go, well, who cares? If it's all truth, it's all truth. None of us are owners of the truth unless we own it. And if you own the truth, then you can own the truth. I believe we are on the path. I believed we were on the path with what we knew. But what we knew brought us to where we are. So remember that little saying? Solomon had a parable that works with that. There's a season and a time for everything. Friends, our lives are nothing but seasons and times. The whole progression of our life will be a season and a time. There'll be a time for us to struggle. There'll be a time for us to find success outside of the struggle, which is also success. So when you begin to put those two together, then you begin to recognize, hey, I'm successful. You are successful. You're a human being. If you're walking towards the light, my friend, you already are. You are already above half of the humans on the face of this earth, many of which may never find the path. But if we found it, then we're supposed to learn it, and then we're supposed to share it with other people so they can also find it. And that's where love comes in. So I'm going to get on with what we were doing. If we're going to take a second, if you just, with me, close your eyes, and we're just going to take a big, deep breath in, hold it, slowly let it out. Take another big, deep, let's do that 3 times, and then we'll get on with our teaching, just to kind of settle ourselves. Y'all with me? On your release, if whatever it is that's holding you, that whatever it is that's captive in your mind, if it's negative, right now is a really good time when you're on that exhale, just mentally to see that leaving as that breath goes out of you, and let that negativity, if it's unforgiveness, let it go. It's not serving your purpose anymore. Awesome. See, just something as simple as watching breathing can affect you. And I promise you, if you'll practice mindfulness of that every day, even if you're not doing very much, I'm telling you, man, if you would just commit to 3 minutes a day for yourself in the morning, do it before you get out of bed. Just lay your head back against, sit up in the bed, lay your head back against the wall, and just breathe a half a dozen times and begin to be thankful, and invite the guides. There are spirit guides. We know that's true. Paul told us that's true in the Bible, that there are spirit and forces that come and function. Not all forces that came to this earth and are coming to this earth, friends, not all of those are demons. And Christianity wants you to totally be demon-based, and I want to be based in those things, those Archangel Michaels that took 21 days to come to help Daniel. Sometimes it's like they're not there, and maybe they're not, but who cares? They're watching over us. And just as Daniel never perished, if we continue to trust and follow him, neither will we perish, because when our bodies cease, then we what? We've been freed to go back to the level that we came from. And so that's all wonderful too. That we have the option if you can trust yourself enough. Many people have the biggest trust problem they have is trusting themselves. Second biggest is trusting a person that speaks in any position of authority. And it's like that's been brain drummed into us, and for good reason. I mean, but we still have to, it's still our requirement with him to trust. And so I believe, if I'm correct, I had read verse 24 to y'all. Is that correct? I had read 24, and we pick up at 25. And 25 tells us, Yeshua said, love your friends like your own soul. Protect them like the pupil of your eye. All right. Soak time. Soak time. I realize that there are many, many people infinitely more spiritual and wiser than I am. But that one right there deserves our total focus. Listen to what he said again. Because what it really means to love your neighbor, friends, I'm sad to say that I don't believe any of us have ever seen what that means. We've seen glimpses. I mean, there's some really good people. I'm not a Catholic, but I think Mother Teresa was a phenomenal human being. I've met other people that were exceptional human beings. And of course, none of us will ever know until, I guess, we get to the other side in the Akashic records, and we've got to read what was written down about what we said and did, and then we may find out more about ourselves than we had any clue of, and be able to see some other pictures. But really profound. Love your friends like you love your own soul. So that in every question that involves, and you could have your argument and you can, okay, well, this says my friends. What about the people that ain't my friends? You see how that would be somebody's thought? Okay, he said I had to love my friends. He didn't say I had to love my enemies. And I think that's something you just have to search inside yourself about. I don't think that's something anymore that gets dictated. Just remember, for every one of us, I'm putting you on notice. Just remember, there is an Akashic library in the heavenlies that records everything you say and do, and not only everything you say and do, it records the spirit in which you did it. And you're going to have to deal with that one day. Can I ask you a question? If you really get that revelation in your heart, is that not enough to change you? Do you really need a set of rules to tell you what intuition has been trying to tell you your whole life? And many of you understand that because many of you have had thousands and umpteen opportunities to do wrong or to be drugged by somebody into something that you didn't want to be in. And oftentimes we as humans find ourselves following that, even though our intuition said, don't do it, go away, go home, leave, and still we go, oh, well, okay, I'll go, and then you end up in the middle of a bad situation. You see it on television all the time. And so it really is up to us to grab a hold of this and to make a conscious choice. All of this is about greater consciousness, my friend. In case you haven't heard all of the key buzzwords, one of the key buzzwords, and it's absolutely crazy because of the connotations of what it meant, is that we are watching an enlightenment of consciousness. What does an enlightened conscious person, how do they exist in the world in front of us? In other words, how do they look? How do they behave? And if you desire to be one of those people, then you must first probably have a picture about what they even are so that you can then get the universe to help you achieve it. Because without a picture, you get nothing. Okay? There's a lot that goes with the stuff that I've been sharing with you guys about prayer, and I know it maybe is really foreign to us. We just thought you could go to church and everybody spoke in tongues, and the preacher put some oil on you and some old rancid olive oil from 5 years ago, and all of a sudden somehow that supernaturally made you healed, and you went away and went to the doctor the next morning. You know what I'm saying? And I really believe that there's more available to us, but we're going to have to recognize and then accept the responsibility that it is up to us to be what we were created to be. And so I guess at that level for people there is an option to not be, but I think my thinking on the deal is, well, now that I know that, I don't want to be the other. Ain't nobody making me. I got no rules. Ain't nobody making me, except for myself. And so I think that we need to grab and maybe look at scriptures that we read, ancient texts that we read. And I'm not talking about reading into them. My understanding of this is a whole lot more to a metaphoric, but a literal metaphoric, if I can say that. That may be an oxymoron, but does he absolutely unequivocally want us to love everyone, and even if you go with just the friends, does he absolutely unequivocally want us to do everything for them that we would do for ourselves? And I think that only you can answer that question. How you answer it may determine a lot. You know what I'm saying? But I love this concept that's popped up quite a few times in one of the renderings of the scripture. It says, don't do what you hate. Don't do to other people what you yourself hate. And how many times have we all done that? I mean, I can't stand it. It gets on my nerves. And then turn right around and do the same thing. Well, I think that's certainly an appropriate opportunity for us to try to love our neighbor like we love ourselves. And it doesn't mean somebody else is going to do the same. It just simply means that I get to stay clean in here, that I get to stay pure in here, that I didn't defile myself, because unfortunately a lot of these defilements that we're going to have to contend with after this life, a lot of those defilements weren't ignorance. You knew better, you just chose not to do better. And we can't lower our vibes and let ourselves get into shame or get into guilt. I'm not trying to cause that. I want you to keep your vibes high. I want you to, I see that every day gets a lot better the more I learn how to walk. Nothing's changed. There's nothing changed, friends. Joe Biden's still running for president, and Donald Trump's still being chased down by the Democrats. Ain't much different in my world, but my goodness, the sun sure seems brighter, doesn't it? Doesn't the lemon water taste sweeter lately? Isn't it nice to wake up in the morning and have some peace inside of you, that you don't have a bunch of crap you have to feel guilty about you did yesterday? Anybody besides me had that? You know, I think that we really live a lot more of our time in that state than we realize. That's not a condemnation, but we do have the ability, if we will accept the responsibility, that we are exactly what Yeshua said is true. You are an Elohim. You are a powerful one. You just don't know what that power even means. And so I see why he used it, and I see why he could say it in Hebrew and it be appropriate to a plural word. Because all of us, we're all light, friends. And whether you want to define that light as spirit or not, I think is really kind of a moot subject, to be quite honest with you. I could use the term spirit. I don't as much now because it ties to Christianity, and I recognize in trying to share something with people that they've never seen, you can't use all the names because that brings all of those biases, which is why I call him Master Isa and Yeshua. And I leave Jesus for the Christians, because that Jesus and my Yeshua, they ain't the same. So, but we have to be mindful of that. How do we get that way? We think, don't we? You have to think about how, and I know I haven't been great at this. In fact, some ways I've been really most horrible. But on the other side, life is a journey. And if I had it all right, friends, I probably wouldn't be here right now. So when I get it all right, then maybe I won't be here anymore. But I'm afraid that'll be about the day that I step out of this robe and it collapses to the ground. So Jesus said, love your friends like your own soul and protect them like the pupil of your eye. So here's a question then. Look at the responsibility that he put on you in one sentence. Did you notice he didn't say you're going to go to hell if you don't? Did you notice he didn't say that you broke all 10 commandments if you don't? He figures that you're supposed to be sharp enough to get what he's saying. It's just not going to be good for you. Makes your life horrible. Makes your friends' life horrible. And it's not going to bear well when you come to having to deal with those. Remember, most of these people that have had out-of-body experiences, every one of them wept for how they made other people feel. Well, isn't that exactly what he just said right there? Care about how you make other people feel? Wow. That's so silly, but so overwhelming. Well, I want. That's what I've heard my whole life a whole lot of. I didn't, and I want. I didn't do it, and I want it. And that's where we lived. Most all of us. Women, you can be honest. You told your husband that more than once. And men have told their wives that. So, but he said, love your friends like your own soul and protect them like the pupil of your eye. I promise you, I don't want anybody sticking me in the eye. I don't want a finger in the eye. I don't want a stick in the eye. And so we really have to be conscious of that. He said, you see the sliver in your friend's eye, but you don't see the timber in your own eye. And to me, this version, everything is given more value than the King James does. But nonetheless, look at the slight differences. You see the sliver in your friend's eyes, but you don't see the timber in your own eye. When you take the timber out of your own eye, then you will see well enough to remove the sliver from your friend's eye. So what does that then? You know, it does now, it always has. It's always meant the same thing. He didn't change anything there. It's always the same. When are you going to look at yourself? Did you notice he did not say, never help your friend get the sliver out? And I'm telling you today that our calling, the calling of enlightenment, the calling of ascension, is about becoming conscious of the other people. That's what we typically, as a rule in our society, don't live with as much, at least on as grand a scale. I don't say that there's not people out there that have empathy, and I don't say there's not people out there who care and love other people, so that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there is a deeper level that we can go to that. And it's our job to seek that. Only when we seek will we find. Only. If you're not seeking, friend, you ain't finding, I promise you. So we have to then look. How are we blessing our friend Beth right now? Well, I got some things I need to overcome. Maybe it's not best that you go have a counseling session with somebody about their marital problems when you yourself are having marital problems. Unless you feel like you can help by your situation. And that took a judgment, didn't it? Yeah. So, if you do not fast from the world, you will not find the Father's domain. Wow. If you do not fast from the world. Let's see. A fast means to separate and not partake of. And so let's look at that in reality. If you do not separate, oh, here's the separation thing again. You mean it didn't go away just because the Old Testament was corrupt? If you do not fast from the world, friends, that right there by nature tells you there has to be a separation. Whether you're fasting for food, you separate yourself from food. Whether you're fasting from whatever it is, you separate yourself from it. That's the whole concept. So when Yeshua says, if you do not fast, separate yourself from the world. Well, we want to be in the world. Even now, with all that's going on, all of a sudden, look, we have the freedom. The lines are blurred. We can go do the pagan holidays again. Okay. So, where's the enlightenment? Because to be enlightened typically indicates that you're living a different life. Your reality is different. That's why I said you can do a lot of things, but the question is why would you? And of course, you have to ask yourself that. I just throw it out there so you hear it, but inevitably you have to ask yourself that question. Think about the people who are not going to experience all that they could experience because they did not ask the question. Do you think that an all-knowing, all-loving creator, divine creator, is okay with us not fulfilling the plan? And if that's not the case, and he's not okay with it, then what does that still mean to you? I don't care how you look at it, it looks bad. It's like on a bad situation, I stuck my hand out and I got my hand slapped. I don't know what a hand slap from the divine looks like. That might not be such a desired thing, you know. I don't really know. And I don't know, except for maybe people who've been there. Maybe they have a better understanding than we do. But I began to ponder on the thing, would it be better for me to begin to pray and ask the Creator to let me have an NDE, a near-death experience, so I could recognize this glory? Or would it just be better for me to walk through the process trusting Him that if I need an NDE, He'll send a car to run over me? And if that's weird, then we need to have a talk about what spirituality is. Friends, we have to have a belief that the Creator, calling Father, calling God, I don't care. But the Creator of humanity, the divine force, the light, we have all of those things in the Scripture about Him. And it doesn't mean that those things were wrong. Maybe that they were just attributed to the wrong Creator. The principles are still the same. We're humans. They were human. Yeshua was a human. He was an itinerant Jewish preacher that went to India and became a Buddhist and came back and taught to Jews how to live and open yourself up, rip your human body open so that you could expose the supernatural light that we all are. And he taught about it in 1,000 different ways. I don't know, has it helped you to understand what he really means when he says that we're not to hide our light? You know what the bushel is, right? The bushel is your human body. You don't hide your light because of this human body. You have to expose it being in the human body. And he wasn't okay with you hiding it. He wanted it to come out so that other people could see it and go, joy, look, the Creator really does enlighten people, and look how love. And is anybody seeing the cycle? Whatever frequency you function at, friend, it's the revelation that you're going to have about reality. When you function high, you see the goodness in everything that He does. The beauty of a morning sun, the feeling of wet grass if you go outside and just choose to be different than everybody else and take your shoes off for 5 minutes and stand in the earth and the dirt and if you'll learn how to lift your hands up in some of these other prayer things that we're learning, you actually can take those simple things which are wonderful and like massively boost them, because now they become a totally spiritual thing, just walking outside for 5 minutes and taking your shoes off and putting your toes in the dirt. There's physical things that happen to your body when you do that. And so we're looking for all the answers, but we won't accept the answers when they manifest. Okay? That's how divine knowledge comes, friends. And so he says, you see the sliver in your friend's eyes, but you don't see the timber in your own eye. Don't not help your friend, but help yourself first. That really is one of the greatest cries that there is. Friends, we're coming out of a totally corrupt system. But let me ask you a question. Are you just going to go to the next thing and be just like you were in the last thing? I think it's a very valid question for every one of us to answer. And it's not me. You have to answer those things to yourself. So do you really just want to redo? So now let's just throw the Bible away and we'll go get a Quran and we'll start reading it, and that'll be our God and our belief system. I'll fight and kill people that are devils because I want 72 virgins. Oh, but then you find out that there's neither male nor female, so I don't know what the heck a virgin is going to benefit you in the afterlife. You think somebody misled somebody? You think they played on human nature? What man that's living in an age where he can fight in wars, what man wouldn't want 72 virgins? It's a sucker bet. You can say that to 10,000 men and you might get 5 that don't want that. Probably not that many. Are you seeing what I'm saying? But now what if you tell them that you should want to be good, and you should recognize that killing other people because they have a different belief system as yours is not an okay behavior? Would there be any Islam left? Absolutely not. It cannot exist in the light, friend. Why? Because it's how you treat other people. Any of you ever struggled with why Yahweh made them kill all the people, even the babies and the women? I know some of you have a lot. And you know what? If you had that intuition, you were right. I took it for what it was. If that was his will, he's the divine, supernatural God, creator of all heaven. He made earth. There was nothing here, and it was void and empty, and he flew by on his cloud, and he spit it out, and then he put humans on here and breathed into them, made us out of mud. Hello. Our sole purpose is to love people. And that was the message Yeshua taught. And he taught us that God is love. There's nothing in him that's not love. Even us going through these things is his love. Why? Because we need to learn some things. So, if you do not fast from the world, you will not find the Father's domain. If you do not observe the Sabbath day as a Sabbath, you will not see the Father. Now, I don't know where he comes from that doctrine, because that's a Jewish doctrine. Did he still hold that belief? I would say that's a good probability. Because as far as I know, Buddhists don't observe a Shabbat. So then we find that he had a belief that it was important. Why do we continue to do the Shabbat? Because I believe it is. I believe it is, and I don't believe sun worship day is the Shabbat. That doesn't leave me but two choices. One is to either continue what I feel in my heart is right, that we are doing, and most of the people here with me feel the same way. We didn't just lose all our desires. It's like, some people were like, well, can I take everything that we've learned the last 25 years and throw it in the trash? Sure, if you want to. But if you think that the Creator spent 30 years to bring me to this place, to come to this enlightenment, and everything he gave me through this 30-year journey was wrong, I'm going to give you a little insight. You're wrong. We've seen more divine stuff than we had any clue of. And the more that we see how he works, the more we recognize the things he did in the past. And of course, some of you haven't been with me. Some will come along that have no clue who I even am. But if you do not observe the Sabbath day as a Sabbath day, you will not see the Father. Look at what he didn't say. You will not see Yahweh. You will not see El. You will not see God. He didn't say any of those words, did he? That's pretty heavy. And the more that you see this and the more that you read, if you still read Bible, the more you will find out in good translations, that's always what he says. I personally have come to believe he did not believe in Yahweh. Jesus said, I took my stand in the midst of the world, and in flesh I appeared to them. If you understand this principle, and some of you may, some of you not, but we have seen some things that seem very indicative that us as humans in the spirit realm, before we are placed in our mother's body, we have already made a decision to accept that person as our parent, which is really a paradox for many people, because people think that they chose their children, and instead the truth of the matter is their children chose them. And it wasn't because of you, it was because of the need that they had for even coming to earth. And if those things are true, then that flips everything upside down. So ask yourself this question. I have two children, and of course they were my kids, and they're my genetics, and I taught them my belief system, and as much as anybody can teach anybody anything, and because they were my kids. What about if we really got a paradigm shift inside of our minds and let it get into our hearts? Would we have lived life differently if we had known that the purpose was for us to serve them, not them serve us? What if you are a supernatural divine guide to that child and it's not about you? You know, they say often, and some of you probably heard this, but they say often that when people, our loved ones, pass over, some of them end up being some of our guides. Like my grandpa and my dad. One was a preacher for 40 years, and one was told he was going to go to hell most of his life. What about if they ended up in the same place? Wouldn't that be crazy? Any of you ever had somebody tell you, well, you might be surprised who all you find in heaven? Any of you ever heard that or been the one that said that? I've said that, but I've also heard people tell me that. Wow. Think about that. Your children chose you. Shouldn't you endeavor to be the best guide, the best parent that you could possibly be for them? Or would you rather wait until you die and then be their spirit guide? I'm cool with the spirit guide, but you're already dead. You can't affect them like you can down here being a parent, can you? So what do we then have to do? We have to learn to love in spite of, don't we? Any of you ever recognize that that most people don't raise children that 100% totally agree with them? What are you still obligated to do? You're still obligated to love them. And the more that you learn to love, the easier that it'll get to accept that they have a different life than you. Maybe at some point they'll change, maybe they won't. So he said, I took my stand in the midst of the world. Friend, that's what we're supposed to do here. We are supposed to be a column of supernatural divine light. And I'm not talking about some evil demonic crap. I'm talking about our behavior and our personality, and how we treat other people is the brightest light that humans can exhibit. And so I took my stand in the midst of the world, and in flesh I appeared to them. Well, see, you would have been taught in Christianity that that means that this is now some spiritual, supernatural miracle thing that he did, and it's not. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about, I chose to come down here. And whether you can understand all that I said earlier about children choosing their parents, he said that I chose to come down here. I chose to come down here, and I came down here for the purpose of showing them my light. Now, I don't know about you, but I can hang with Yeshua about that. Wow. How huge that is. Isn't that kind of almost supernatural in itself? Without any really overtones of Christian magic? And so I came down here, and in flesh I appeared to them. And I found them all drunk, and I did not find any of them thirsty. And my soul ached for the children of humanity. What is that a statement of? That's a statement of compassion. That's a statement of empathy. He said, I came to this earth to show my light, and I looked around, and everybody was drunk and confused about everything, and it ached me. And then ask yourself, if that was Isa, Master Isa, if that was his heart, shouldn't we probably be having the same heart? Does it ache you when you see people, or do you just accept it because it's all messed up? And I get that. I'm there too. So I'm not throwing stones. I'm asking us questions that we can grow by. Sometimes just asking a question and then answering the question for yourself is the greatest promoter that there is. And so he says, I found them all drunk, and I did not find any of them that were thirsty. Look around our world, friend. How many people do you see? There's a movement going on, and it's worldwide, and I know that is true. I know that when mine started and when it started here. And it was instantly. He had to move some things out of the way that were negative and were hindering us, and immediately there was a shift. And the people that are here with me are nodding their head because they know that's the truth. And so he says, my soul ached for the children of humanity. Did you notice he didn't say for the Christian children? He said, my soul ached for humanity. All of them. Black, white, brown, yellow, Russian, Chinese, American. None of those things even occur to him. He's over here in the middle of a country that's being decimated by the Romans, and he doesn't say, my soul ached for the children of Israel. He says, my soul aches for humanity, because the war wasn't the worst thing to him that could happen. I mean, Rome certainly did them a lot of damage, and it's horrible what Rome did over in Israel and other places around the world. But that's minuscule compared to what he's talking about. And so he says, my soul ached for the children of humanity because they are blind in their hearts. And they do not see. For they came into the world empty, and they also seek to depart from the world empty. But meanwhile, they are drunk when they shake off their wine, then they will change their ways. So once again, another metaphoric picture. You want to know when you will gracefully accept change is when you quit drinking the wine of the world. When you quit worrying about self and begin to worry about humanity, friend, you have begun the ascension road. I'm telling you, there's going to be some great things. There is some very great things, even in our relatively close future. This is not for naught. And the beauty of this is no religion is going to stomp it out of you. If you truly become enlightened, Just like I read to you in the Bible, which was also at the beginning of the start of this thing, that you will be illuminated, and it will be illuminated by God, the Father. And so he says, but meanwhile they are drunk. When they shake off their wine, then they will change their ways. So could I safely say, for those who are listening and those who have already begun to see changes and peace in your life, and you've begun to see that you can be a more compassionate and a kind and a loving person, and you're starting to practice mindfulness, like, no, I know I could say that, but I think I just won't. Just because we can doesn't mean we always should. Discerning that is sometimes a little harder than what it appears to be. But the best thing that can happen to us is when we do speak when we shouldn't, that we walk away and then feel guilty about it. That's a positive guilt. It's not negative. Now, if you let it keep hanging around, then it becomes a negative. But for you just to feel guilt for something that you did, that's the most positive thing that can happen. Fix it however you have to. If you have to go, do it right now. And so it tells us that depending on how you apply which metaphor to this thing about the wine, it is certainly a possible reading that when he's talking about the drunk, he's talking about the drunk on the world. And when you shake off this body, then you will see. That's why everybody who goes in NDEs, everybody comes back. I haven't heard one person who came back with a horror story. Even if they went there and had a horror story, it wasn't a horror story, because when they were different folks when they came back into reality again. And that's what he's telling us. Wouldn't it be crazy to you if you found out that this guy really was an ascended master and he really did believe all the things you hear me speaking about? I mean, you may not be convinced. I'm totally convinced, but maybe I've read a lot of stuff you haven't read. And it's kind of difficult to try to pick out, you know. There's so much of it going on, and some of it, friend, and I would warn you today, you know, people send me stuff all the time, and I look at it and I go, you didn't get it. Some of these things are pretty clear, okay? Some of them are pretty clear, and they're functioning out there, and if you're not seeing them, then that should worry you. So I think I'm going to stop right there. It's what a wonderful way to stop. Maybe if we would quit being drunk, we would put off. Is the picture of being drunk because we're intoxicated with living a human life and not intoxicated with living a spirit life? You do know that what you focus on is what the universe will give to you, send to you, correct? Same way that if you focus on negative, you will get negative. Whatever seed a man sows, that's what he reaps. If you sow seeds of anger, you're going to get anger back at you. If you sow seeds of hatred, you're going to get hatred back. If you sow seeds of whatever you sow, that's exactly the reaction that's going to come back to you. And so how about if we dig on this one a little bit? It's my favorite one. What about if here's the question to ask. When I begin to sow seeds of love, does my harvest immediately come? Well, I'll tell you, friend. You can know it's in the ground, and it can be a little bitty plant, but you may not get to pick fruit off of it the next day. Okay? What happens on this earth is metaphoric of what happens in the spirit realm. And you grow by a process. That's why Buddha tells us that if you will quit doing your sin and repent from it, and when I use the word sin, I'm talking the things that make you separated from the Creator. That's sin. I'm not talking about you ate some pig, although we haven't eaten pig, and as far as I know, we're not going to. And I love shrimp, but I don't want to go get no shrimp. And I love king crab, but I don't want to go get no king crab. I haven't lost anything with whatever I've put away out of my body, and out of the poisons and stuff that I put into my body. Okay? So it's not that I couldn't. I'm surprised somebody hasn't asked me, well, you know, well, can I eat bacon again? Friend, you can do whatever your conscience says is okay to do. I'm not going to be there. You know what I'm saying? But my conscience tells me that there's other things going on that we haven't quite seen. And that just to run away from something that morally is just, I don't think that's the highest calling. And we want to walk as high as we can. I want to keep our vibes up there. If you know what a vibe is, you understand why there's all over the place you hear things about vibes. It's not coincidental, it's a synchronicity. There is a change going on in this whole world, friend. What you're experiencing here is going on all over the world. Because there is going to be a change. And I won't speak because he hasn't given me, first off, exact words, but because he hasn't told me it's time to. But I assure you, when he does, as I've done for the last 30 years, I will tell you that this is what the Creator said to me this morning, and you will find that it's right. And so, let's take what we do have. You know, oftentimes in Christianity as a pastor, I would see people and they wouldn't take the word that was exposed to them. It was like, okay, well, that was exposed to me. It must not be very good. I want something bigger. Like you teach somebody to pray that you always see Yeshua moved with compassion when he heals people. And it's not in every time, but if you know Yeshua, you know that that's what motivated him, was being moved by compassion. Well, I want to know, how am I moved by such great compassion? Can I be a bully and a punk and rude and mean, and then just poof, all of a sudden I get moved by compassion and I do supernatural healing? Because if you'll listen and think about what I just said, you will often find that that's exactly how we try to function. We want to continue to be who we were, and then we want some really supernatural stuff, so that's cool for us. But this isn't about just giving you supernatural power. The Creator desires to prepare us for what we already are. So look up, look inside of yourself, and see how beautiful you are. See that he doesn't make accidents. Many have tried to stop the spirit of whoever you are. If I had your names, I would individually say your names. And recognize that you are more than what you've been exposed, what you've been told. And when you begin to do that, you'll begin to see things differently. And we have to see things differently. So, shalom to each and every one of you. I hope that you truly are blessed. It's been just wonderful to me. We're watching synchronicities go on everywhere. Dave's having stuff almost daily. I'm having stuff almost daily. Marianne's encountering things almost daily. And it's just like, wow, none of them are going to change the world. They're probably not going to put you on the news because you supernaturally had a synchronicity. But it sure does affect your life. And so we need to take that and value that the Creator, the universe, is speaking to us. And when you begin to recognize that enough, all of a sudden that'll make you light up like the White House Christmas tree. All right. I hope you guys have a wonderful, blessed week. Practice meditation and mindfulness. Let yourself enjoy the luxury of being peaceful. Remember, Yeshua told us that we would have peace inside of us, even if the world wasn't. And so, shalom to each and every one of you. We will be back on Saturday at 2 o'clock. Got some killer music that we're going to play, and we're going to go on with our path and our journey. Hope to see you then. Shalom.